Okay, so the final step or the aspect of using delegates, events, and event handlers is to attach an event to event handler. And in order to do this, we use this plus or equal operator. So, for example, we have a worker object and we would like to know when is work performed event fired. So we want to listen to this event and we kind of give it a delegate. We new it up here and then we give it we pass the data when this happens to a new method that we create that has to have this exact name. So this is the name of the method. So essentially this procedure creates another delegate and adds it to invocation list. So this is the plus equal stuff that we are adding a delegate to invocation list. So in a code, I'll go ahead and demonstrate really quick. So everything remains the same here. We have our event and we're raising the event. We have an event handler here. So now we want to go ahead and wire it. So in order to do this, we new up our worker class here, and we'll have that we'll see that we have event here. We select our event and we use plus and equal. And now here we can use, and I'll show this in the second step, I can use this tab to automatically behind the scenes generate a delegate, but just to demonstrate how it works, I'll go ahead and new it up here and I'll use new, I'll use our event handler of, and then we pass it our args. And then here we pass it the name. Of the method. I'll just call it run this method for now. And then of course we need to have this method because otherwise it won't compile, so we can create run this method, and it has to have that signature we talked about, object, and it has to have event args, and then we can do something here. Run this method is not spelled correctly. Okay, so now we have wired our event to our event handler here. So every time we run it, it will call this, run this method. Let's try it. We need to put a console.read line here. Console.read. Oh, that's right. So I wired it up, but I'm not calling that method on a worker. So I say work, do work, send something like 8 hours, and just say work computer programming. So now you're effectively calling it, and we're going to be getting here, although we are calling it, although this method that we're calling, for example, is void, so it's not really returning anything. But through this delegate, through this pipeline, we're able to actually behind the scenes instantiate this delegate that passes this data through the pipeline and passes it to this method here effectively. So when we do this, we're getting the data for each, we're getting this method called for each pass. So another way to do this is instead of, it's a little bit confusing. Even when I first time I saw this, I'm like, well, don't we already have this here? See it right here? It's the same. So they figured it out. So they invented another thing that can help us with this, and that is called the delegate inference. And this is a way to simplify wiring an event to an event handler. We simply just point it to our event handler method name, and the compiler automatically does all this for us. So it's a delegate inference. So what we do right here, all we have to do is, as soon as we say this guy plus will equal, it automatically knows what you're trying to do. Just tab it twice, apply, and now we have automatically created method that gives us the standard method name for it. Instead of run this method, it's work performed. It's based on the naming convention that we already have for our event. And then we can do the same thing here. And we'll see that it functions exactly the same. And then finally, another thing that, and this is once we start getting into lambda expressions, is going to be very important, is that we can write this, we don't have to have this method here at all, and this is typically done if we're doing something simpler. We shouldn't have more than 1 or 2 lines of code in it, and this is called anonymous method. Let's take a look really quick. So anonymous method is the method that basically doesn't, it's kind of inline method. So it doesn't really have a name. We're just kind of plugging it right here. We use this delegate keyword, and then we put the parameters, and then the body goes right underneath. So it's a method inside of the method, because the main is already a method. Then we have an inline method inside of it, and it's used for simple things and, in a sense, simplifying the code. So in this case we use delegate keyword, signature of the delegate, which is the same as the signature of our method, and then the body goes right underneath. So this is sort of a basis of using lambda expressions. So it's very important to kind of realize how we got to here. The whole process of getting to here, from using, the delegate, this type of delegate syntax. There's also a different type of how we got to this delegate syntax from a regular delegate syntax, and then we can further simplify it down to this. Compare it as everything, and then this right here. And also, anonymous method always ends with a semicolon. So let's make sure that this runs in exactly the same way, and it does. So that's basically introduction of using delegates with events and event handlers.